Euaoi.
Twitter, the social media platform that has a reputation for being one of the worst sites on the entire internet. And before I keep going, yes, I'm aware that it's now called X, and no, I will not be calling it that, no matter how much other people say it. Sue me for dead naming a social media platform. I could honestly care less. But despite that, there are so many alternate social networking sites that function like Twitter, such as Mastodon, Parler, Gab, Getter, Truth Social, Meta Threads, and most recently, Blue Sky. While this is not exclusive to Twitter, since YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels were created after TikTok became successful. And it's just a normal part of how business is done, since innovation almost always leads to imitation. To quote commercial leader Wasike, imitation is widely viewed as an agent of change and as a twin process of innovation. By observing and learning from the pioneers, imitators save a lot of costs incurred by the first mover in the areas of research and development, marketing, and advertising. You could argue that the people behind those Twitter clones observing and learning from Twitter's flaws are trying to fix them so their platforms won't be as hated as Twitter. While that would be true if it wasn't for the fact that it feels like the creation of all these Twitter clones are politically motivated. But before I begin, I should mention that these Twitter clones will be divided into two categories: the alt-tech Twitters and the post-Musk Twitters. Why I categorize them as such is because the alt-tech Twitters were created as free speech alternatives, which ended up attracting a lot of politically right-wing users to the platforms, while the post-Musk Twitters were created after Elon Musk took ownership of Twitter back in 2022, where he promised the goal of promoting free speech, which has resulted in people leaving over claims of misinformation and hate speech being more prevalent on the platform. Following Donald Trump's victory in the 2016 presidential election, Twitter suspended various alt-right accounts from the platform due to them violating Twitter's guidelines for inciting or engaging in the targeted abuse or harassment of others. Many alt-right Twitter users ended up moving to the alt-tech platform Gab and saw a significant increase in users following the 2016 election, where it continued to grow for the next 2 years and even saw an increase in users outside the US. Only to have faced scrutiny following the October 2018 Pittsburgh synagogue shooting, where it was reported that the shooter had an active Gab account. It was also reported that PayPal, GoDaddy, and Medium terminated their relationship with Gab following the shooting, only to go back online not long after when Epic agreed to register the domain. At around the time Gab was facing scrutiny for the tragedy that happened in Pittsburgh, another alt-tech Twitter, Parler, launched on the internet. Parler saw a significant increase in traffic in the next 2 years when pro-Trump activist Candace Owens attracted 40,000 new users to the platform, which overwhelmed their servers. Parler has even carved out a niche among these banned right-wing influencers, like Gavin McInnes, Laura Loomer, and Milo Yiannopoulos. Parler has also gained notice of some bona fide Republican leaders, Trump campaign manager Brad Parscale and Utah Senator Mike Lee. But that growth came to a stop in 2021 when Parler was shut down by its service providers following the January 6th storming of the US Capitol, where Parler went through numerous attempts to get the website back online, where ultimately in April 2024, Parliament Technologies, Parler's former parent, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. In July 2021, former Trump aide Jason Miller launched Getter, had nearly 3 million users in November 2021, continued to grow in 2022 with the joining of Joe Rogan, Robert Malone, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, where it ended up fading into obscurity not long after. At around the time Musk made his move in purchasing Twitter, Donald Trump launched his own Twitter called Truth Social. While it saw some success as it placed pretty high in the App Store rankings, the company that owns Truth reported over $300 million in losses in the first quarter of 2024, as well as losing more than $750,000 in revenue. As for the post-Musk Twitters, while this one was created before Musk took control of Twitter, it gained traction after the Musk takeover, so I'm grouping it with that. Anyways, open source microblogging site Mastodon ended up gaining 70,000 new users after Musk took complete control of Twitter. In July 2023, the parent company of Facebook, Meta, launched Threads, where it set a new record by reaching 100 million users in just 5 days, beating the previous record held by ChatGPT. This was mainly due to the fact that Threads accounts are closely integrated with Instagram, which is a social networking platform that already has a lot of users. In its earliest stage, many journalists hyped up Threads to be the Twitter killer, only for it to lose 70% of its active user base just weeks after launching, where we now have Blue Sky today, with its inception dating back to 2019 when Twitter's then CEO, Jack Dorsey, first announced the Blue Sky initiative in 2019 on Twitter to explore the possibility of decentralizing Twitter. Blue Sky first launched as an invite-only service in February 2023, with registrations opening a year later. Following the 2024 presidential election, Blue Sky saw a significant increase in users, reaching 25 million users to this day. While its user count is increasing, the real question is, will they stick around? Because judging by its trends in unique likes, posters, and followers, it seems like it's going the way of Threads if this trend doesn't reverse. As for my opinion on the creation of all these Twitter clones, not only is it just a complete oversaturation, but I just hate how most of their creations were politically motivated. This especially goes for the alt-tech Twitters, where they all claim to be a free speech alternative to Twitter. And when Elon Musk ended up buying Twitter and tried to rebrand it as a platform for free speech, it basically eliminated the need for all of them. Especially since Parler is currently offline, Getter's user base is practically non-existent, and Truth Social is currently operating at a loss. And what's even more uncanny about Gab being the sole survivor among these alt-tech Twitters is that its user base is by far the most radical of the four. As for the post-Musk Twitters, while Mastodon and Blue Sky were initially created as open-source alternatives, the reason for their growth was purely political as a response to Musk buying Twitter, and the outcome of America's most recent presidential election. It also doesn't help that right-wingers are now accusing Blue Sky of censoring their voices on the platform. Another reason why I'm tired of seeing all these Twitter wannabes pop up, because it almost feels like they exist solely as echo chambers where people can post about their views without having the fear of someone doing something as minuscule as disagreeing with them. While I think Musk made some pretty dumb decisions while running Twitter, such as having to use a paywall to stop the sudden increase of bots on the platform, I truly believe that Twitter in its current state is the closest we're going to get to a Twitter where the amount of people by political ideology appears to be balanced. Also, why am I saying this like I even have a Twitter? And one more problem I have with all of these different Twitters is that it seems like none of them are fixing any of the problems that Twitter has to begin with. And that's because the biggest problem Twitter has is one that really can't go away, no matter how many additional features and patches you add to it. If you're wondering, the biggest problem Twitter has is that it's a microblogging service. After looking extensively into why Twitter is the way it is, I've come to the firm conclusion that microblogging networks are just toxic by nature. I've come to this conclusion not just by realizing the motivations behind the creation of most of these platforms being political, and the ones that weren't had their growth in popularity being due to political reasons, but by learning more about the fate of another microblogging site that was once popular, with that website I'm referring to being Tumblr. Because throughout most of the early to mid 2010s, Tumblr's user base had a reputation for being odd, to say the very least. Tumblr's decline in web traffic began when the mods ended up banning adult content, which caused a lot of its user base to migrate elsewhere. Where did most of them ended up going to? Well, they ended up going to none other than Twitter. It also didn't help that Twitter was a platform that Donald Trump primarily used for getting his messages across during his presidential campaign and his time in the White House. And since then, Twitter ended up being reduced to this hot mess that we know it as today. And I feel like instead of just making a bunch of Twitters, I think it'd be best if the internet just moved on from the Twitter format and create a new social media format that wouldn't be as easily prone to toxicity as Twitter. While some may say it's impossible, I for one remain optimistic that it can be done. Anyways, that's all I have for today, and I'll see you next time.